You want to make more money, but you don't know how to get it. You want to ask your boss for more money and you're too intimidated to do it. Don't. I get asked this all the time. Let me help you help yourself. We're going to teach you how to ask for more money. Over the years, we have hired countless employees at several of my companies. And I'll tell you that the resounding theme is almost always the same, is that people are fearful to ask for more money or open up the discussion for a couple different reasons. Number one, they fear rejection, I'm sure. Number two, they don't necessarily know how to articulate themselves. And number three, they have this false sense of that's my boss or that's the owner, and it's intimidating. Well, all of those things are not the things you need to focus on. If you feel like you deserve more money for your job, you first need to ask yourself if it's justified. Have you been there a long time? Have you learned your job? Have you done exceptionally well? How do you relate to your peers? The biggest mistake people make when they come into my office is they come in with this bravado like they deserve something, and then they tell me, I've been doing this for 5 months. I feel like I know everything about this job. If you've been doing it for 5 months, you're not even out of our training program. So you need to do a real hard deep dive into what it is that you do and do a self-assessment. Do you really deserve it? And if you feel that you do, you should have metrics which show that you are an outlier or you contributed, or I should know as your boss how hard you're working. And if I don't know, there's a disconnect you need to resolve. So before you go in and ask your boss, I'm going to lay down some tips and some basic things you need to think about. If you go in and talk to your boss, in this particular economy, inflation is high. The average person right now is feeling it. At north of 8% inflation, and the Fed monetary policy is trying to bring that back down. That means if you didn't get a salary increase last year, your salary increase was 3 to 5%, that means that 8% inflation actually means that you make less money, because that difference between the 8% and the 5% that you may have gotten, that 3% means 3% more cost of living for you. So you're probably feeling the pinch. Layer in the cost of gas going up and all the prices at the grocery store, those things that you're really feeling that you buy every single day, and you may actually legitimately need money. And that's my first tip. What you need to do is be able to communicate why you have a need for more money. And in this economy, more than most economies, you've got inflation on your side to say, hey, look, I didn't get a salary increase commensurate with inflation. Can you see if you can do something for me? And then your next thing, the second point, is you want to go into your performance. Your performance individually and your performance as a group. If you are a salesperson and you're directly responsible for bringing in business, cite that business. If you're part of a group or part of an organization, or maybe you're just an operational employee that had a collective year as the company did, cite how the company did. It shows that, number one, you're engaged in the company, and number two, it also shows that you have an understanding for how you have added value to the company's performance. If you can communicate that, it's certainly a lot better than if you walk in and say, hey, I did really well this year, I want more money. Or, hey, my life's costing me more money, you should pay me more money. Because that isn't always the way that it works. It's very easy for companies to say, I'm going to pay you a cost of living increase every single year, 3 or possibly 5%, and then that's just the methodology unless you get promoted. If you're in a job and you want to move up, that's the third suggestion I have for you. Sometimes the best way to get more money is not necessarily to say, hey, I want more money. It's to say, hey, I want more responsibility. I want more career growth. I want to learn more. I want to grow myself personally to be a better employee for this company. And obviously, in return for that, I would expect more money over time. So the question isn't, in that scenario, can I have more money? Or, hey, can you pay me more? It's, what can I do to take on more responsibility? Now, there's an underlying understanding that if you take on more responsibility over time, you're going someplace with that. You're either going to do more work for more money, or you're going to do more work for a higher paying position, a promotion of sorts. But you're not necessarily asking for a promotion. What you're asking for is more responsibility. I want to do better. I want to personally perform. Another thing you can point to are your extracurricular activities. You thought that ended while you were in high school or college. Well, guess what? It didn't. When you're in the work environment, the things you do outside of the work environment to better yourself really do matter. If you're going to take additional certifications, or if you're possibly going to school, or if you're doing something to possibly broaden your horizons outside of the company, make sure your manager knows about that. Make sure HR knows about that. Because if you're doing something to up your social status, or up your personal profile, or improve yourself, or broaden your horizons, then your manager probably doesn't know that, because what happens in every single corporation is you tend to get ID'd and flagged as the person you were when you came in. Myself, at the bank that I'm now at, I'm currently the chief credit officer of the bank, but I started there as an underwriter. It would have been very easy for me to be identified as an underwriter and be an underwriter in perpetuity. It was through doing these same things that I'm telling you over time that led to my increased performance and my increased results, which in turn obviously meant more money. So the question may be, well, Chris, I'm intimidated. I don't know how to ask that question. Well, if you schedule the time to do it in advance and you tell your boss, I want to talk to you about my performance, they generally know. Myself, people schedule these kind of meetings with me all the time, and I can tell by the candor of the email or the candor of the request that this is what's happening. So you really shouldn't feel intimidated. What you should be is prepared to have the conversation with me. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to tell you no. I'm not going to tell you, hey, this will never happen. What I'm going to do is tell you, if it is going to happen, I'll look into it. And if it's not going to happen, I'm going to explain to you why it's not going to happen, but I'm going to give you the guidance you need so that one day you can make it happen. Hey, Tom, I would love to give you a promotion. I would love to give you more money, but number one, I can't do that for you right now. It's not the right time. We'll talk about it during budgeting time. But if you can do X, Y, and Z, increase your performance, increase your attendance, do better at your job, or not have complaints, or whatever it might be, then that's your best avenue to get guidance in advance from your boss. And then guess what? Once you have that structured, this is what you need to do to perform, to get what you want, you do it for 6 months to a year, and you again follow up with your boss to schedule that again. You're building up this conversation where they understand what your expectations are and you understand what their expectations are. And if you can fulfill those obligations over a short period of time, or maybe even a longer period of time, you will ultimately get what you want. But you have to make sure you're assertive enough to ask for it, because frankly, and a lot of people don't understand this, there are people who will be in the work environment that are happy with their job. They're happy with consistency. They're happy with what they have. And while they may want more, they don't want to ask for more because they don't want to take on more responsibility. They can have other things outside of work that are their focus. So don't think that you're necessarily being neglected or mistreated. That's the vehicle. Whether you're a corporation that's massive or you're a small mom and pop small business, it doesn't necessarily matter. You have to communicate. And that is my final lesson for this whole thing. Communicate to the people you're with about the things that you want, and that's an easy way for you to progress. If the people around you don't want to know the things that you want or don't want to hear it, I would argue that there is one alternative, and I've saved the best for last. If you get labeled an underwriter or a processor and you cannot grow despite all the things that I've just told you to do, and you know you've tried your best and you can look in the mirror and say, hey, I've done all these things, and you still cannot grow and you do not have an opportunity, sometimes the fastest way to move up in any company is to change companies. And there's nothing negative about that. It used to be that if you change companies rapidly over a year or 2 years or 3 years, or whatever it might have been in a short term, it was looked bad upon you and your resume whenever you went to the next job. They would say, oh, why does this person keep job hopping? In this day and age, in this world, it's actually not that uncommon to see. And if anything, it gives you a little bit more of a breadth of understanding of how different companies work. You've been to Wells Fargo, you've been to Union Bank, you've been to community banks, you've been to lenders. You may have a whole different understanding of the market because you've seen so many different ways of doing things at so many different institutions. It could be argued to be a strength. Now, I'm going to end this video on one bit of caution. The Great Resignation has come upon us during this whole work from home period of time. And a lot of people are falling in love with the idea that they can wear their gym clothes and they can be comfortable and they don't have to go into the office anymore and they don't want to get dressed and do it. All of the things that I've told you to do are 100% a hell of a lot easier if you're actively going into the office or actively communicating with the people around you. If you're not doing that because you want to be at home and have that comfort, just know you're putting yourself at a competitive disadvantage than somebody who's more engaged than you. And as the economy turns and jobs become less and less easy to get, those dollars that you used to be able to command are going to come down. So don't press your luck. Be really, really cognizant of who you are and where you are. And if you feel like it's realistic, go for it. We'll catch you next week. Thanks for seeing us.